Hey, have you ever been really excited to attend a free autism training, but then you walked out more confused than when you went in? Well, you're not alone. That's what we're going to cover on this video, so let's get into it. Hey, my name is Ben Blackman. This is the After Us Project. And listen, before I even get started with this, I just want to say that every training I can think of that I went to, the people were very well intentioned. They were doing their very best. They were trying to make sure that they conveyed all the information. They had a lot that they wanted to share. And, I don't want to make it sound like that's not the case because it is. And by the way, that's one of the issues that happens is they have so much that they want to share. It's like drinking from a fire hose, right? For the audience. And I know because I've done that myself where I have overtrained or tried to overtrain in some other stuff that I do. And that makes it difficult. So I don't want to make it sound like the people that are doing this aren't doing a great job, because they are, because their organizations almost always are great. And the people that they have there are really trying their best to help. And so anyway, I've said enough about that. Sometimes though, when you go on to these trainings, it feels like it's being done for like grant compliance standpoint versus clarity. Now they have to comply with the grant. So whatever it is they have to do, they've got to do it if they want to keep getting the grant, keep helping people. So that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's kind of like, that's why they're trying to push all this information in there, or to do it so quickly, if that makes any sense. And a lot of times, the trainings are the way that they're set up is just to make sure that they do it for an hour, right? And they're not very clear on what level of autism that this is for. Now, let me just say this. If you're not familiar with the levels of autism, I did another video on it because a lot of people aren't. It would be very helpful if the people doing the trainings would say, this training is for all levels, right? Or this training is for just for level 2, level 3, or something along those lines. Like my son's a level 3. So understanding that before you even sign up for the training, that would be super helpful. But it's rarely talked about. In fact, I don't ever remember anybody talking about it, except sometimes when parents will ask questions, they'll ask that. But the trainers themselves don't really talk about that. So if you're a parent or a caregiver and you've gone to these trainings and you've walked out with like a deer in the headlights kind of look, you're fine. That's exactly what happens. The other thing and I don't know if this is true everywhere. I just know some of the local trainings here, when they're doing them on Zoom and stuff or whatever, they won't record them. They cite privacy issues, but that's a very easy thing to overcome. And to me, it's a disservice to say we're going to have this training and then not give you the replay of it, right? They could record the audio. I mean, at the very least, they could record the audio if they can't even, and then send out the slides. I mean, if the problem is video, then okay, well then that's the solution. Plus everybody could sign a waiver, before they attend the training. I mean, it's really ridiculous to have that. So I have a solution for that. I want to see if it works, see if they'll go for it. I don't think they will, but at least I'll have tried. So be prepared for that. If you go to a training that some places are not going to record, or they may not. So the other thing, and by the way, before I get into this, I'm going to talk about the acronyms just a little bit. But before I do, please subscribe. I would love to know if this is helpful. If it's not helpful and you subscribing lets me know. So do it. I don't want my mom to be the only subscriber. I know I say that all the time. All right. So let's talk about acronym overload. So the acronyms are just pervasive in this area. They're everywhere, and they're confusing to me. So, I mean, we all know things like IEP and ABA maybe, but, that doesn't mean, say your parents don't know what that means, or like my sister, she may not know what that stuff means. She might have a rudimentary knowledge of it, but she doesn't know. So, and there's other things like here, there's like maps, and there's things like ECF and LRE and all, it's just on and on. And so a lot of times in these trainings, they don't really go over what these mean, and they can't take the time to do it because they're trying to cram it in a certain period of time. And so they just, they're just going through it as fast as possible. Well, it's our job we're intending these trainings to ask those questions. What does that mean? Right? That could you explain that? Could you tell me more about that? And if you say those kinds of things in the chat or however you're going to do it, I mean, they're happy to do that. Okay, they are. They don't realize a lot of times that people don't know what they're talking about because they're embedded into that world. Just like in my company, we use a lot of marketing speak because that's what we do a lot of. So the layperson may sort of understand it, but not really understand it well enough to get the full comprehension. Same way with this. So it's you really have to stand up there and make sure. So the other thing that I kind of wanted to think for you to think is is that most of these trainings are created by academics or agencies, and not that's a bad thing. I mean, people have some serious knowledge, but as a caregiver, as a parent, right? I've got 19 years of experience, day in, day out. I suffice to say is I probably have more experience than most of them do. And that being said, when they're coming at it from an academic standpoint, that's how they're explaining. It's not always a practical application of what goes on in the real world. It's kind of like getting business training in college. And when you run a business, it's completely different, right? And again, it's not that they're doing anything wrong. And it's not the information isn't valuable. It's just what I feel like would be a better way to do it is to make sure that they're doing it slow enough to understand everything. I don't want to take any longer than it needs to take. I don't want to. I mean, I have a busy life, but at the same time, if I'm gonna commit my time to the training, I want to make sure I'm going to get enough out of it. So if they had clarity around who this specifically on the autism spectrum or what level, is it for? Is it for a level 1 college student, right? Or is it a level 3 non-functioning kind of, I mean, who's really this training for? If they had that, they made it less academic, and they tried to cover fewer points. Again, the whole thing about drinking from a fire hose, it doesn't really help to give a whole lot more points if you walk out and cover a lot more topics in a training if people are going to walk out confused. Okay, so I hope that was a little bit helpful, because I don't, if you're walking out confused and wondering what happened, you're not the only one. And remember, you take your time, you ask questions, ask as many as you need to, and you'll get the answers. They will give you the answers. Like, they do want to help. It's not that they don't. So anyway, I hope that was helpful, and I appreciate you joining me today. All right, see you.